Today on Here for the Right Reasons, Zach Shallcross defends his facial expressions during this past season of The Bachelor.
Blame my genetics. I can't hide my emotion. I don't know.
Yeah, he definitely wears his heart on his sleeve for sure.
Plus, Gabby says Zach is changing story about sex to protect Katie's relationship. And Zach and Kaitlyn Bristowe respond to Nick Viall's harsh critiques. And Bachelor creator Mike Fleiss is no longer at the helm. We've got that plus so much more on today's Here for the Right Reasons. Hey guys, Christina Garibaldi here with Us Weekly Deputy Editor Sarah Heron. And Sarah, even though The Bachelor is not on, we are going to be recapping each and every week all the biggest news stories, all the biggest interviews. So we still got a lot to talk about.
We do. There's still, fallout isn't necessarily the right word, but revelations, little tidbits here and there and stuff from Zach's finale. Obviously, him and Katie are engaged. We broke that all down, but we had a lot of people who had opinions about the finale, right?
A lot of people. Harry says, I can't celebrate for Zach because I was too invested in the injustice he inflicted upon Gabby. As you said, he knew on that final date that it was going to be Katie. So given all the anguish and sex shaming he put Gabby through, at least don't drag her to the ceremony. I agree with that. Like, why did he have to bring her? Why did he have to drag her to the ceremony? We're going to talk a little bit more about this in her revelations a little bit later about why she actually wanted to be at the ceremony, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, it was a lot of humiliation for her that she didn't really need.
Yeah, 100%. And even in a lot of the interviews I've listened to, Zach is doing a lot of hinting at things without saying them because, contracts.
Right.
But one of the things he said that I feel like didn't get a lot of pickup was with Kaitlyn Bristowe. And he kind of admitted that he said something to Katie to almost mislead her on proposal day because producers asked him to. And Kaitlyn was like, oh, they did that to me too. So we have to remember that element of what producers are asking him to do, what they're promising him. But as we said last week, think about all the people who did send them home early. There's both things are true, I think.
Right. Definitely. Let's see who else. Guyla says, I honestly do not understand how someone could say yes to the guy who mistreated another woman in so many ways before her eyes. Honestly, feels like Gabby dodged the bullet. Well, maybe.
I know, them being such good friends always makes me think like, would you want this for your friend? Or like if you're like on your friend's side to some degree, like how are you accepting it for yourself? I know you have to compartmentalize these relationships, but I've always found that so fascinating about the Bachelor friendships. Right. And a lot of times the ones where they end up with the person don't end up as, close to a lot of the other women, maybe with an exception of like a Catherine Lowe, but like Sean didn't really mess up. So it's tough.
It is tough. And then Selena says, I was all in tears for Gabby the entire time she was speaking. This is so awful and shouldn't have been on TV. This was way worse than watching Ari break up with Becca. He didn't seem at the final like he cared or had any regrets for what he did to Gabby. Zach has been self-centered right from the start of the season and lacks basic human empathy. This is all him, in my opinion, not production. Production gave him one of the best edits they have ever given to anyone. They haven't even chosen Gabby to be the next Bachelorette to continue to protect his honest Bachelor edit. Interesting.
That is interesting. And I mean, we'll get to it. I asked Zach about his face, which was, I wrote on Instagram, a tough thing to just ask someone like, what's wrong with your face, Zach?
What's wrong with your face?
What's wrong with your face? And a lot of people did accuse him of not having empathy, of, just cutting people off when they questioned him and of not putting himself in the women's shoes, despite being a contestant himself in the past. And I think there is some truth to that. I think, as we said before, there is something to be said for how long were these conversations he was having with this women before he started looking so frustrated. And you could also argue, for Katie, what a bonus, which we kind of said, like he always glowed when she was there. So she knew, but it is something to be said. I think that maybe he did get, that's crazy to think about him getting a good at it because I didn't really love him.
Right. No, I didn't really love him either, but she does make a good point. I mean, even from the beginning when they were kind of billing the season, like we are getting back to basics. This is all about the romance. We want a happy ending. And they really wanted him to look as good as he possibly could. And
calling someone Mr. Right Reasons.
Yes.
And I know like Ben Higgins has come out and said like the perfect Ben label he thought worked against him because when he did make a mistake, it was like, oh my God, how could Ben, our perfect Ben, do this? And even for his own self-esteem, he was like, am I this perfect person? Yeah. So I do get that part of it. But by shoving Mr. Right Reasons down our throats and bringing Sean Lowe, their successful Bachelor, every week, it felt to me from start to finish that they were going to give this guy the best look they could And then when he messed up, though, it was what was interesting to watch. So it's so ridiculous to me. But
so
whatever.
ridiculous. Well, there will definitely be some changes next season because Mike Fleiss spoke out in the wake of a Variety report that claimed his exit from the franchise came on the heels of an investigation into alleged racial discrimination and his on-set behavior. So he told The Hollywood Reporter, since this premiere 21 years ago, times have certainly changed. And I'd have to say we didn't keep up with the pace of those changes. I am proud of the work we've done over the past 5 years to make the show substantially more diverse, but I do believe I could have done more. Hopefully the franchise will continue to move in the right direction. He told The Hollywood Reporter that he believed he left with more good days than bad, lifted more spirits than hurt feelings, and with more friends than foe. Of course, he created The Bachelorette, The Bachelor and the Bachelorette in 2003. Or he created The Bachelorette, in 2003 following The Bachelor's success, and he stepped back as executive producer and showrunner of The Bachelorette in 2021. So The Bachelor now will be helmed by showrunners Claire Freeland, Jason Ulrich, and Bennett Graebner. Big news.
It is big news. And I did listen to Chris Harrison's podcast about this because naturally Chris Harrison and Lauren Zima had to hit the mic and react to this. And one of the bigger takeaways, I mean, there was a lot of reports that came out about this, and a lot of them had similar, reporting. There was an investigation internally done by the Warner Brothers investigator and lawyer who found that there was, several people who claimed that Mike Fleiss had made comments like minorities don't bring ratings, and kind of when people would bring things to the table to try to move the show along, he would almost retroactively punish them and they wouldn't get promoted. And he was just trying maybe to stop some of the progress that the show was trying to make because he was trying to protect the ratings, was like his point of view. We know he had issues with Caitlin Bristow years ago with Dancing with the Stars and telling her that Sean should be her passion and not dancing. And I think there's some of the sexist stuff in here and it's obviously some of the racial discrimination. I think there's a lot to that, 100%. There were also people who said, I've worked with Mike for, anonymous sources. I've worked with Mike for 21 years and I love him. I didn't even know they were doing this investigation. Potentially, maybe those were some of the male employees. I don't know. That's just my speculation. But something that was interesting that also came out was people, expressing frustrations that they haven't been moving up the ladder after working on the show for a long time. And the three people that they picked as the new showrunners, Jason and Bennett, have been with part of the show for a while, Bennett specifically, apparently. But Claire worked on Bachelor Canada. And they brought her in. And according to Lauren Zima and Chris Harrison, there were plenty of qualified women and other people who work on the current U.S. Bachelor and Bachelorette that would have made sense. So they were really surprised by that name. Chris Harrison has never even met Claire Freeland, knows Bennett, and Jason hadn't been there as long as Bennett, but he kind of understood those decisions. But this other choice was questionable to them. So I don't think that this is the end of like Bachelor behind the scenes revelations. I think, this is a guy who was accused of beating his pregnant wife not that long ago.
That is true.
He denied it. They got divorced. She settled for $10 million. Read between the lines. So messy. And also for reports to kind of try to downplay some of his involvement in the show, saying he wasn't involved in the last 10 years. It's like, really? Have you seen his Twitter? He tweets, every 10 seconds. Yeah, he inserts himself. He made himself known as the showrunner of the show. You don't even usually know like who show runs The Bachelor or created The Bachelor.
Right. No, you're so right. Like you'd never know who a showrunner is. And like you said, he inserted himself in every single storyline. He made himself the headline on multiple occasions, being like, well, we have a big announcement tonight about The Bachelor, every other week. So, it's hopefully the show heads in a better direction. We've been saying this for a very long time. It does need changes, does need diversity. There's a lot that they have missed the mark on over the years. And hopefully, we take some steps in the right direction. We'll see.
I know. I want them to do something crazy and like change the format. Like, throw like a wild thing. And if it doesn't work, that's almost fine because it's still like this crazy topic conversation. And I think people will tune in to watch a mess. Granted, when there's a train wreck, you maybe have to like pivot back and it could be harder to recover from. But I think they got to just start taking wild swings and see what happens. Like I think the audience that likes the show is going to tune in. And I think that other people could maybe dip back in if they're like, no way, what are they doing? They're making this rose give you like an automatic pass to this week and this girl's fine. I don't know, like come up with something cool. Come up with something. I think people will want to see it again.
Right. You want something fresh. You want something that's going to interest people again. Like Love is Blind. People can't get enough of it because the format is so interesting. And because it's,
the casting is wild.
And the casting is wild. Like do a better job at casting real people. We don't need pageant queens every single season. Give us normal, real people. Like, I don't know. It's just that's too much of the same. for 20 some odd years. We got to change it up a little bit.
Yeah, it worked when Mike Fleiss came up with this concept. It was genius at the time, but now it's like we got a lot to compete with.
Exactly.
Well, to go back to the most recent season, Gabby was on the Clickbait podcast, and she talked about how Zach was the one who wanted to keep having sex private. She told Grocery Store Joe. So when he came into my hotel room, what he said to me was, I don't want to start a relationship up with secrets. And I thought at the time, maybe he's giving me space to be able to speak to my support team about this. He wants me to feel like he doesn't want me to feel like I have to keep a secret. And it left some room for interpretation because he had said sex of any kind is off the table. People can interpret that any way they want to. What I was not aware of is the conversation that he was having with Jesse Palmer and his interviews where he was using my name, speaking what I think was great detail about what happened, and watching that back caught me off guard. So she kind of says that like it was Zach the night before who was like, yes, or said we can keep this a secret. She agreed. The next morning, he doubled down with the story she told at After Final Rose, came up behind me when I was brushing my teeth. We're going to keep this a secret. And then a mere couple hours later, he said, you know, I don't like secrets or something. So that doesn't make any sense.
No, totally. We were kind of talking about this at the top. She's such like a cool girl. Like she's, you know, she said that she didn't leave like she knew from very early on that it was Kody, like he was 100% going to pick her. I mean, we saw that she was, you know, she questioned him on multiple occasions. Like, I know that this is not me, but she didn't bow out of the competition because of Kody, which I thought was so nice of her, because she didn't want Kody to feel like he just picked her as like a consolation prize pretty much, and just picked her because she was the only one left standing. I mean, she's really she's a good friend.
I know. I mean, and it's actually a very interesting point. I do probably think there's so much insecurity when the winner is picked. Like you celebrate, and then you must immediately think, when did you break up with the last girl? When did you know it was me? Like, then watching it back, you're probably getting maybe answers that don't line up based on editing or based on the truth of what you've been told by this winner. Like, it sets up so many insecurities. So I do think there is something to that for Gabby. And I believe her. And I also think maybe there was like a sliver of hope. Maybe she was just trying to think that she was wrong, and why not like see the process through. And she said, you know, Zach could have sent me home. And I think, as we kind of said, it goes both ways. It's part of the show. He maybe wanted to just see out the journey. The producers told him to, but this was a case that I think it would have been just as emotional, just as whatever gratifying for the audience. The storyline could have been completed on that final date. He still maintains he didn't know because the dates aired out of order. Yeah. I don't know if I believe that. And I also, as I said to Zach, kind of, I was like, did you, panic about sleeping with Gabby because you realized in that moment you wanted to prioritize Kody and you thought you were going to lose her? And he said no, but I'm like, then what is this twist of I have to let Kody know I don't want to start a relationship off on a lie? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, something just doesn't add up here. Well, speaking of things that don't add up, there was this rumor going around that Zach and Jess from the show had reunited after the season and were together instead of him being engaged to Kody. That was not true. So Zach and Kody stopped by the Chicks in the Office podcast and watched an apology video from co-host Rhea, who she initially shared this theory. She said via Instagram, I have no idea if this is true. It's just something I've heard that apparently no one else has heard. But apparently after Zach got engaged to one of the girls who I believe to be Kody, that engagement ended and he is now with Jess. Jess is the one who loves Taylor Swift. She loves body glitter. She even posted a clip recently of them at the Women Tell All together. I don't know how true this is. Do what you will with the information. It would be freaking crazy if that happens. Well, they thanked the Chicks in the Podcast co-host Fran for the apology, and Zach said it was out of the blue. I appreciate that she actually made a video and apologized because there's so many crazy things that go on and people have all of these conspiracies and this and that, but she owned up to it. So yes, no truth to that one. They didn't even have their one-on-one date, so I don't think that was going to be happening in the real world.
Wouldn't that have been fun to watch play out?
That'd be a twist.
Yeah, would have been a twist. Always fun when, speculation gets thrown around. This one seemed innocent enough. No harm, no foul, because it just wasn't true at all. Mm-hmm. And also on that podcast, Zach spoke about picking out Kody's engagement ring. And I thought this was so interesting. And I never really thought about it. Obviously, we know it's been a long time that Neil Lane has been the provider of the Bachelor engagement rings. And we see so many of these rings, and a lot of them do look alike, but I don't really clock. The ones I really like, I remember really liking Lauren Bushnell. Mm-hmm. Like, you remember certain ones you really like. I feel like I really liked Tayshia's ring. Like, certain things stick out to you, but you're not like totally honed in because it's just kind of a lot of the Neil rings are created equally.
Sure.
But he revealed that he knew what Kody wanted, which was her ideal ring, she said, would be a gold band with an emerald cut on top. But I guess Tino gave that to Rachel last season. But either way, I'm grateful. It's a gorgeous ring. So she got like her second choice because the show stepped in and said, this ring that Kody wants, we just had on the show for the 5 seconds that Rachel and Tino were engaged.
Like, do you think that we remember?
I know. Any couple that we're going to remember what the ring is, it's certainly not Rachel and Tino.
Right. I mean, give the girl what she wants.
I know. Literally give her what she wants.
Right. I mean, if hopefully she wears this forever, and I don't know, maybe she'll upgrade like Jordan and JoJo did a few years down the line. So we'll have to wait and see. Well, this was interesting. So, Zach and Kody really got around last week. So they sat down with Caitlin Bristow on her podcast as well. And they thanked Caitlin for reaching out after she initially critiqued the franchise for picking Zach as the lead. She even said that Nick Viall was so hard on them. And Zach said, do I even want to go into that? Because he had reached out to me like the day before saying, hey, man, I got your back. Like, I'll support you. And then he drops his phone number and just like saw it. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Then the next day I just see in Yahoo News or whatever, Nick slams Zach Shallcross. He's so this and that. And I was like, was that just a pity reach out? Because it kind of hurt. I've never met him. And I was like, it's kind of an a-hole move. Maybe he didn't mean to. Maybe something he said got taken out of context. But it was a little harsh. And Caitlin agreed. Nick likes to insert himself in some drama.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was a lot of Nick's tweets I kind of did agree with. It was a lot of the stuff about Zach maybe lacking some empathy. But the fact that you had reached out to him and given him your phone number, and we're kind of like, I got you, man. And then we're tweeting that, like, kind of pick a lane, either kind of be a Bachelor commentator in some sense or be a line of support. I think Caitlin has also kind of been on the border of that. She even said she apologized for criticizing Zach's choice. Mm-hmm. I think as the choice for the lead, which is kind of how this conversation started. But I think it's these leads. It's tough because they know the editing, they know the show better than anyone else. So when they are critical, you have to wonder, like, is it worth it for them to be critical? Right. But then also maybe distance yourself, like maybe don't do interviews, but also like Nick has a really successful podcast and he does great interviews. He gets like a lot of good juice out of these people. So I think this is just what's always going to happen, but you can't play both sides. No, Katie Thurston, kind of did the same thing when she said she has Nick blocked because I think he had a similar, like, I got your back. And then he critiqued her. So I don't think you can play both sides.
No, you can't play both sides. Pick a lane, Nick. Pick a lane.
Pick a lane. Okay. Well, more speaking of Zach and Kody, we also did speak to them, as you know. And if you want to hear the whole thing, go listen to the Here for the Right Reasons podcast. But we have another clip right now of Zach's response to the backlash of people criticizing all these things we've been speaking about and about their future. I had to maybe be like, what was that 2025 date? And here's what they had to say.
Well, being the Bachelor, it's not easy, and there's always going to be criticism and critiques. And I feel like, Zach, you've gotten a little bit of flack for some of the faces you've made, maybe during more intense moments or when women were expressing some concerns. There's the face. How do you feel about that feedback and just overall what people have said about the season?
I mean, hey, I blame my genetics. I can't hide my emotion. I don't know.
Yeah, he definitely wears his heart on his sleeve for sure. And I think that's what's also great about you too, is that you can't hide it and you're not faking it. You're not bullshitting anybody. And if he's not feeling it with a woman, he wasn't feeling it. And, he didn't. Yeah.
It's not something I realized in the moment either. Like I was alerted of this because of the memes and I was like, no way. I don't know how long I've been doing that.
Yeah.
But I've never had that face with Kody.
Yeah, I was going to say, from Katie's perspective, watching it back, your face was pretty much glowing the whole time.
I couldn't stop smiling. And I still can't.
What are you guys most looking forward to about living together?
Hands down, just the little things matter. I think it's going out to dinners, going on a hike around Austin, going to a coffee shop. We've been asked this question a lot, and we always joke, and we got made fun of. Like, Jesus, just put them in front of a coffee shop.
Get them some coffee.
Yeah, guys, how much coffee do you need? But we're serious. It's like that's what we're looking forward to. I mean, we have some exciting plans and some trips for sure for this year. Portugal being one of them. But other than that, just little things. Yeah.
And where did the 2025 wedding date come from? Is that something you really said, or are you just trying to punt it so we don't ask you too many questions about that?
Funny. No, so the entire show has been very expedited, right? It's 2.5 months, and we've been living in hiding essentially for the past 5-6 months, and everything has been so rushed that it's finally our time to just relax. And there's some things that we want to do before taking that leap. We have the rest of our lives. To build a family, to get married, to have a house. So it's like, let's just focus on you and I and Austin, and the rest will happen. And it's always flexible. There's nothing contingent.
I'm rooting for them. I hope they make the wedding to 2025. I hope they do it.
I know. I thought it was funny that he could laugh at that. I mean, I was like, listen, 2025, what are we doing here? And it just kind of came out in a little bit of a judgy way, but I think I'm glad they laughed at it. They had to answer a lot of uncomfortable questions about Gabby, 4 hours for 2 days. And I've seen body language that was a little closer, but I've also seen worse.
Right.
Blake and Katie Thurston. The first one I called wasn't going to happen. But then I saw Michelle and Nate, who I thought were the most insane couple on the planet. So we really don't know. But I agree. I'm rooting for them. There's no reason not to. And we'll see.
We'll see what happens. All right, moving on to our social spotlight of the week. And we wanted to give a shout out to Kayla Quinn, who welcomed her baby girl, her first child with her husband. So cute.
Baby Teddy is here. Teddy Marie. She had a C-section. I know that Kayla was ready to give birth. The baby was 8 pounds and 4 ounces, if I'm remembering correctly. Shared the exclusive with Us Weekly, and just so cute. Teddy is a cute name.
Teddy is a really cute name. Good for them. It seems like they're settling into motherhood and parenthood very nicely. So congratulations to Kayla, her husband, and baby Teddy. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Here for the Right Reasons. Keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.